And we've had parties together, we've been out together, we've sang together, we've jammed together in honky-tonks, and we've had good times.
Jerry Lee Lewis is an American singer, musician, and pianist, often known by his nickname, The Killer. He's been described as rock and roll's first great wild man and one of the most influential pianists of the 20th century. A pioneer of rock and roll and rockabilly music, Lewis made his first recordings in 1956 at Sun Records in Memphis. Crazy Arms sold 300,000 copies in the South, but it was his 1957 hit, Whole Lotta Shakin' Going On, that shot Lewis to fame worldwide. He followed this with Great Balls of Fire, Breathless, and High School Confidential. However, Lewis's rock and roll career faltered in the wake of his marriage to Myra Gale Brown, his 13-year-old cousin. Lewis had a dozen gold records in both rock and country. He received 4 Grammy Awards, including a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award and 2 Grammy Hall of Fame Awards. Lewis was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986. He was a member of the inaugural class inducted into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. In 1989, his life was chronicled in the movie Great Balls of Fire starring Dennis Quaid. In 2003, Rolling Stone listed his box set, All Killer, No Filler, the anthology numbered 242 on their list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. In 2004, they ranked him number 24 on their list of the greatest artists of all time. Lewis is the last surviving member of the Sun Records $1 Million Quartet and the Class of '55 album.
The first piano that I really remember is that one sitting right over yonder. It was a piano my mom and daddy bought for me in Faraday, Louisiana.
If you enjoy these videos, please remember to hit the like button, as it does help us out a lot. And comment below who your favorite celebrity is that you'd love to see in an upcoming video. His full name is Jerry Lee Lewis. He's also known as The Killer. He was born on September 29, 1935. He stands 5 feet 11 inches tall. Jerry Lee Lewis has an unusual hobby of collecting fountain pens. Lewis has been married 7 times. He had 6 children during his marriages. In 1962, his son Steve Allen Lewis drowned in a swimming pool accident at the age of 3. In 1973, Jerry Lee Lewis Jr. died at the age of 19 when he overturned the Jeep he was driving. When he was 16, he married Dorothy Barton, which lasted for 20 months from February 1952 to October 1953. His second marriage in September 1953 to Jane Mitchum was of dubious validity because it occurred 23 days before his divorce from Barton was final. After 4 years, Lewis filed for divorce in October 1957. The couple had 2 children, Jerry Lee Lewis Jr., 1954 to 1973, and Ronnie Guy Lewis, born 1956. His third marriage was to 13-year-old Myra Gale Brown, his first cousin once removed, on December 12, 1957. However, his divorce from Jane Mitchum was not finalized before the ceremony took place, so he remarried Brown on June 4, 1958. In 1970, Brown filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery and abuse. They had 2 children, Steve Allen Lewis, 1959 to 1962, and Phoebe Allen Lewis, born 1963. His fourth marriage was to Jaron Elizabeth Gunn Pate, October 1971 to June 8, 1982. They had 1 daughter, Lori Lee Lewis, born 1972. His fifth marriage to Sean Stevens lasted 77 days from June to August 1983, ending with her death. Lewis married his 7th wife, Judith Lewis, March 9, 2012. The next day, Lewis severed business ties with his daughter, Phoebe Lewis Lofton, who was his manager, and revoked her power of attorney. In 2017, Lewis sued his daughter and her husband, Zeke Lofton, claiming that she owed him substantial sums of money.
When were you married?
Pardon?
When were you married?
Well, we leave our personal questions out of this, sir.
All right, well, good luck.
Thank you.
Lewis was born in 1935 to the poor farming family of Elmo and Mamie Lewis in Faraday, Concordia Parish in eastern Louisiana. In his youth, he began playing piano with 2 of his cousins, Mickey Gilley and Jimmy Swaggart. His parents mortgaged their farm to buy him a piano. Lewis was influenced by a piano-playing older cousin, Carl McVoy, the radio, and the sounds from Haney's Big House, a black juke joint across the tracks. On November 19, 1949, Lewis made his first public performance of his career, playing with a country and western band at a car dealership in Faraday. The hit of his set was a cover of R&B artist Styx McGee's Drinkin' Wine, Spooty-O-Dee. His mother enrolled him in the Southwest Bible Institute in Waxahachie, Texas, so that he would be singing evangelical songs exclusively. But Lewis played a rendition of My God is Real at a church assembly, which ended his association with the school the same night. Harry Green, then president of the student body, related how during a talent show, Lewis played some worldly music. The next morning, the dean of the school called Lewis and Green into his office to expel them. After that incident, he went home and started playing at clubs in and around Faraday and Natchez, Mississippi, becoming part of the burgeoning new rock and roll sound and cutting his first demo recording in 1954. In November 1956, Lewis traveled to Memphis, Tennessee to audition for Sun Records. Label owner Sam Phillips was in Florida, but producer and engineer Jack Clement recorded Lewis's rendition of Ray Price's Crazy Arms and his own composition End of the Road. In December 1956, Lewis began recording prolifically, as a solo artist and as a session musician for other Sun artists, including Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash. His distinctive piano playing can be heard on many tracks recorded at Sun in late 1956 and early 1957, including Carl Perkins' Matchbox, Your True Love, and Put Your Cat Clothes On, and Billy Lee Riley's Flying Saucers Rock and Roll. Formerly, rockabilly had rarely featured piano, but it proved an influential addition, and rockabilly artists on other labels also started working with pianists. On December 4, 1956, Elvis Presley dropped in on Phillips to pay a social visit while Perkins was in the studio cutting new tracks, with Lewis backing him on piano. Johnny Cash was also there watching Perkins. The four then started an impromptu jam session, and Phillips left the tape running. These recordings, almost half of which were gospel songs, have been released on a CD called $1 Million Quartet. Lewis's own singles advanced his career as a soloist in 1957 with hits such as Whole Lotta Shakin' Going On, a big Maybelle cover, and Great Balls of Fire, his biggest hit, bringing him international fame. As part of his stage act, Lewis pounded the keys with his heels, kicked the piano bench aside, and played standing, raking his hands up and down the keyboard for dramatic effect, sat on the keyboard, even stood on top of the instrument.
What would you say on the piano is the Jerry Lee Lewis trademarks?
They playing with the left hand and a raking.
His annual earnings are roughly $2.58 million. As of 2020, his net worth is $15.54 million. He owns a few properties: 1595 Malone Road, Nesbit, Mississippi; the Lewis Ranch, Nesbit, Mississippi; Jerry and Maya's first house, 4752 Diane Drive. In his garage, you can find a 1963 Lincoln Continental convertible, a 1990 Ford Mustang LX convertible, a 1973 Cadillac Eldorado, a 1966 Buick GS, an Elvis Hound Dog, a custom Lincoln Mark III, a 1980 Cadillac Eldorado, a 1992 Lincoln Mark VII.